Today, information is coming from every box and iron that Trump's special representative Vitkov was helping Russia. Well, sort of against Ukraine. But since I don't trust irons at all, especially those stuffed with propaganda, I decided to check it myself. That is, to check what actually happened. So, on November the 25th, Bloomberg agency, they hate Trump, published a transcript of a conversation between Vitkov and the representative of the Russian Federation, Ushakov, in which, according to Bloomberg, Vitkov was training the Russians on how to communicate with Trump. At the same time, they didn't answer questions about where they got this from, nor did they answer questions about how they know that ours is 100% authentic and correct. Bloomberg, as they say, is completely silent and doesn't answer anything. So, judging by what Bloomberg has presented to us, what does this actually mean? Here's what Steve Vitkov said and how this actually 5-minute conversation developed. Ushakov. So do you think if Putin contacts Trump, it will be useful? Vitkov, I think so, yes. I would advise Putin to start by congratulating Trump on the gas issue, and also say that Russia supports this agreement. And in addition, to confirm that Putin sees Trump as someone who wants to bring peace, not war. Well, let's remember that Trump also mentioned this conversation, which, as we now understand, Steve Vitkov supported. Here is Trump's account of the conversation from October 16. Next entry, he posted the following on Truth Social. President Putin congratulated me and the United States on the excellent resolution of the conflict in the Middle East, so Sharapova herself. Sharapov later told journalists that Vladimir Vladimirovich began the conversation by congratulating Trump on his successes in the Middle East and saying that this would help stabilize the situation in Gaza. In the conversation, Vitkov told Sharapov that he personally respects President Putin. That is, Vitkov told Sharapov that Steve, respects President Putin, and that he told Trump that Putin has always sought a peaceful resolution to the conflict with Ukraine. Then Vitkov added that he understands that a peace agreement should include the transfer of the Donbas territory to Russia, but possibly also the transfer of some territories of Ukraine. So to Ukraine. Captured from Russia. So once again, we don't know where they got this from. We don't know. Whether they were able to verify the authenticity, as it's called, or not. They're keeping quiet about it, but we, so to speak, are responding to what is supposedly known and what the media is shouting about. Let's think about it together. Telling the representatives of Russia that Vitkov respects their leader is absolutely the right thing to do, by the way. In fact, from my point of view, it's essential for negotiations. So personally, I haven't participated at that level, but I have been involved at some other level. And I always said, well, to those I was negotiating with, you guys are great. You can't put it that way, but the point is smart, attractive, and kind. And I believe that together we will resolve everything to our mutual benefit and joy. How else can you say you are hornless goats? Or does it mean quietly cursing you behind your back, saying that the gallows are crying for you? Yeah, maybe it's true that the gallows are crying for you, but that's very foolish to do before negotiations. Next, so Vitkov, I told Donald that Putin has always been striving. Sekmarov, and why is that bad? Of course, I tell everyone that they are fluffy and gentle. You are the fluffiest and the gentlest. Again, not doing this is silly. Well, of course, in words, so to speak, I'm exaggerating a little there, yes. You must always make those you're negotiating with feel you have a positive personal attitude toward them. That you have a disagreement, which you'll eventually resolve. They're great, and once we leave, we'll be friends right away. So, by the way, what did Vitkov actually say to Trump? We have no idea. And the main thing is, we'll never know. Never. Even if they both tell us something about it, I wouldn't believe it 100%. Yeah, well, forget it then. That means before I forget. By the way, at the end, I'll tell you an absolutely amazing story about the court decision in Georgia regarding Trump. You're going to love it. So let's move on to the most terrible part. Steve Vitkov suggested to Ushak to start with praise for Trump. Honestly, I don't even know how to react to that. So he said, when you talk to my boss, you should praise him. Then he went to Trump and said, so I told him that Putin, when he calls you, began with praise. Or maybe he didn't say it, so what? What's the problem? I personally really can't understand. What is he kind of saying to Ushakov about Putin? My boss likes being praised. No one else in the world likes it, but my boss does. And that's why I'm revealing to you the terrible secret of the Trump 47 American administration. He likes being praised. Here is the way to Trump's heart. It goes through flattery. Ladies and gentlemen, I must admit the way to my heart is also through flattery. After talking with Ushakov, Vitkov met and worked for 3 days on the document with NU, the agreement between Ukraine and Russia. Another proposal, yes. With Kirill Dmitriev on October 29, Dmitriev and this very Ushakov spoke on the phone and discussed. So, once again, all this is posted on the internet and there's no proof of how it was obtained or whether it's true or not. Well, here you go. Here it is. We got it. Go ahead and read. So, it's like they were talking about how firmly Russia should defend its position regarding demands to Ukraine. Ushakov supposedly said, we'll demand the maximum and discuss how to make sure Trump doesn't twist all our words later. I don't understand this statement at all, but I think they wrote it just to take a jab at Trump. Dmitriev said that Russia's demands should be shown informally to the Americans before making them public. And what does it mean that these demands could serve as a basis for negotiations? Rest assured that Ushakov and Dmitriev knew perfectly well they were being recorded. They're not little children. So, Yuri Ushakov, in response to Bloomberg's inquiry, said that everything that's been published is, as he put it, partially the invention of the opponent in the truce. So, some of it is true, some of it is not. Someone is eavesdropping, someone is passing on possibly edited pieces, someone is acting in their own interests, but this is not our intelligence, he said. He knows his intelligence, the American one, is documenting, and others, including Ukrainian intelligence, are too. So, well, maybe through the Russian or American side, who knows, the American press started publishing, putting out scathing articles under the general headline, The New Ukrainian Plan. This is the work of two amateurs, Kirill Dmitriev and Steve Vitkov. When Trump was asked what he thought about the betrayal of interests, whether of the United States or Ukraine, Trump replied, in my opinion, what Vitkov said is a standard approach to negotiations. According to rumors, Jared Kushner also took part to some extent in drafting this document, which we call the 28 points and so on. And he is also, of course, a complete amateur in negotiations, although he did bring about peace agreements between Israel and 5 Muslim countries, plus several agreements in Africa, the Middle East, and Europe, but still just an amateur, not a professional by any means.
Well, this leak shows 3 key pieces of evidence of just how close Trump's team and the Kremlin are. The October conversation published by Bloomberg between Trump's special envoy Steve Vitkov and Kremlin aide Yuri Ushakov now raises serious questions about the role of the United States as an impartial mediator in the war in Ukraine. First, Vitkov appears to have accepted Russia's demands for the entire Donbass, including the part that Ukraine still controls. I know what it takes for a peace agreement, Vitkov tells Ushakov. Donetsk, and possibly a land swap somewhere. Well, that's an American official essentially bargaining with Ukrainian territory without its consent, thereby depriving Moscow of any incentive to compromise.
I wonder how cable news network is presenting the situation. So, Vitkov, as a mediator, understands the real situation, which is why he tells the Russians, "We understand that we can't force you to leave, and the Ukrainians themselves, they can't kick you out. They're not strong enough. Let's stop any further seizures and we'll bring you back into the international community, into international relations." For this, he is recognized by the left, by our leftists. I'm not talking about Ukrainians. It's unclear who they are. They're thieves, but why label them leftists, rightists, or leftist thieves? So to traitors and those who are pushing Ukraine towards, well, to war until the last Ukrainian, they're fighters for truth, justice, and stupidity.
Secondly, at the negotiations, which may come down to who can convince Trump better, Vitkov seems to be giving Russia the tools for victory. "I would call," he advises, "and just repeat that you congratulate the president on this achievement," meaning Trump's recent ceasefire deal in Gaza. Number 3, Russia seems to be taking Vitkov's advice that some leaks are fake. But then Putin called Trump, as Vitkov advised. And that was just a day before Zelensky met with Trump at the White House. A meeting that ended with the United States pressuring Ukraine to accept territorial concessions.
Once again, if Ukraine gives up 25% of its territory, it will save its people and survive. If Ukraine doesn't give it up, it will keep fighting. And Europe will convince them that they will help them, just like they did in 1922 roughly, when Huss's Britansky Johnson arrived. If Ukraine keeps fighting and the United States stops helping it, it looks like from January 1, 1925, our aid will either run out or decrease rapidly. And then in 2-3 years, Ukraine will be captured, another million residents of this country will be killed, and another 3 to 4 million will flee abroad. So if you go for peace, you lose 25% of your territory, but if you don't go for peace, you lose 100% of your territory. Vitkov advises Ukraine to go for a truce and lose, just like Finland, 25% of its territory. Cable news network MSNBC, France, England, and Germany want basically, well, for all Ukrainians to be killed. Subtitle editor: I don't understand why they want this, but it's clear they do. And now about the case against Trump in Georgia, because this is an absolutely remarkable story that I promised to tell you, and now I'm telling it, about his alleged attempt to interfere with the vote counting in the election. This case has finally completely collapsed, failed, ended, and will never be reopened again.
We are following the breaking news on the case we've tracked for years. The judge dismissed the Georgia election interference case against Trump and his co-defendants. This happened after the prosecutor who took the case said they were dropping the charges. This was the president's last criminal case over efforts to undermine the 2020 election. We're joined by National Broadcasting Company News Chief Justice and Policy Correspondent Kelly O'Donnell. Kelly, this prosecutor took the case after Fulton County Prosecutor Fani Willis was removed. Why did he drop these charges?
Glad to be with you, Zindle. And he states that he reviewed the information and does not believe it is in the interest of the people of Georgia to initiate this prosecution and continue it for years, especially against the sitting president of the United States and a number of other accomplices who were named in this indictment, which has now been dismissed. This is a significant victory for President Trump. He responded and stated that this is what he calls political persecution and a legal war. So a long post from President Trump about this. And the prosecutor who was brought into the case and was looking for a replacement for Fani Willis, who was removed from handling the case because of a personal relationship she had with someone she appointed to work on the case. He only took the job after he couldn't find any other prosecutor willing to take it. And after considering this, he went to court today and the judge agreed to dismiss the case. And in part, the prosecutor says that bringing this case to a jury in 2029, 2030, or even 2031 would be an outstanding achievement. It won't benefit the citizens of Georgia to have this case fully considered for another 5 to 10 years. This shows how he assessed this time frame, the fact that the president is currently in power, and other factors. And why is this case closed now?
Everything fell apart. Every single case against Trump fell apart. All of them were dismissed. The road to showdowns, how the Democrats interfered in the elections openly. As I told you already in 2016 and 2020, these 2 years will be remembered by the Democratic Party as years of their terrible disgrace. That's all. Until next time.